Hello, everyone. Now, I know that it's hard to keep up on top of what's going on in the Holy Land, but if you want to know more about what's happening here in Israel, I'm Aaron Porras, and this is the Weekly Review.
Today marks exactly 1 week ahead of the 2021 elections, and things are heating up. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu calling off a campaign event in the city of Ashkelon in southern Israel Monday night at the last minute, disappointing his supporters. Israeli media initially reported that he canceled the event after receiving a threat from a Gaza terrorist group, and that the Prime Minister wanted to avoid a potentially embarrassing situation like being led off stage as he was on the 2019 campaign trail. Yet on Tuesday, in an interview with Ynet News, the Prime Minister said he canceled the event because he was holding an important diplomatic conversation with another leader from the region. And while he would not divulge which leader he spoke to, he did say he expects the public to hear the details of the call in the near future, adding that Israel should expect to see 4 more peace agreements on the way. Netanyahu also said in the interview that he believes he has enough votes to form a coalition, saying that the Yesh Atid party leader Yair Lapid is his main opponent, a fact he accused Lapid of trying to hide.
אם יבואו הליכודניקים בבית ותימשך המגמה ממצביעים שחשבו להצביע לבנט ולגדעון שבאים אלינו, יהיה לנו יותר מ-61 באופן משמעותי, ואנחנו נקים ממשלת ימין חזקה, ואני מודיע שום רוטציה, בלי רוטציה, בלי לפיד. לפיד הוא המועמד שיקבל את ה-20-25 מנדטים, הוא המועמד לראשות הממשלה מולי, את זה הוא מנסה להסתיר. הוא לא מודיע, הוא לא מוכן להודות שהוא רץ לראשות ממשלה. למה הוא רץ?
הוא כבר לא מסתיר, אתמול הוא
יופי, הגענו, התקדמנו, אז זו האמת. האמת היא שזה המבחן בעוד שבוע, זה מי יהיה ראש ממשלה, אני או לפיד. לפיד מלא או לפיד ברוטציה עם בנט וגדעון, אבל אלה האפשרויות. אצלי לא יהיה לפיד ולא תהיה רוטציה.
The Labour and Meretz parties, for their parts, also announcing this week that they would recommend Yair Lapid to form the next government as Prime Minister. Meanwhile, this week saw the rift between Israel Beitenu head Avigdor Lieberman and the ultra-Orthodox parties deepen, as Lieberman told Israeli TV audiences that he would send the Haredi parties, together with Netanyahu, to the landfill, and his statements causing quite the stir this week. But as the campaigns enter their final days, we're sure to see lots more intrigue in the week ahead.
A new mortar system is providing the Israeli army with next-level precision and eliminating risks of harming nearby civilians. The Defense Ministry revealing this week its complement of a new guided mortar system called the Iron Sting. Using both innovation GPS and laser technology, this formidable weapon adds a whole new level of precision to the IDF. It accurately targets enemies embedded in crowded urban environments. This while Defense Minister Benny Gantz touting that the new technology will forever change the battlefield with this new weapon. Israel is showing its strong commitment to taking sufficient precautions in distinguishing between militants and civilians. Well, Prime Minister Netanyahu allegedly tried to stop all flights from Jordan from entering Israel, according to Israeli media. The escalation follows last week's clash when Jordan blocked Netanyahu from crossing its airspace on the way to the UAE, forcing him to cancel his flight over a Temple Mount disagreement. Transportation Minister Miri Regev approved Netanyahu's demand and apparently gave the relevant bodies only 45 minutes to inform their Jordanian counterparts about the change. Meanwhile, Netanyahu saying that the flight was canceled altogether, not because of Jordan, but because of Saudi Arabia, because of the threat of missile fire from Iranian proxies in Yemen. Another Israeli flight was blocked from Saudi airspace as well, this time the cast and crew for the reality TV show Survivor, on their way to Dubai. Saudi Arabia began allowing Israel to use its airspace last year when Israel signed normalization deals with the UAE and Bahrain. The Foreign Ministry and the Civil Aviation Authorities said they were dealing with this, quote, sensitive and complex matter and were waiting for an answer from Saudi Arabia.
Moving along, while Israel, Greece, and Cyprus are actively advancing plans to build the world's longest undersea electric cable, their neighbor, Turkey, is not too happy. Israel, Greece, and Cyprus officially planning on building a 2,000-megawatt undersea electric cable estimated at $6 billion. But meanwhile, nearby neighbor Turkey is publicly protesting this recent agreement. Going on state media, Turkish officials arguing that the route of the planned cable transgresses Turkish territorial waters. Additionally, Turkish officials are adding that the 3 countries involved needed to first seek Turkey's approval before conducting any sort of feasibility studies. The planned cable is not the only joint cooperation between Israel, Greece, and Cyprus, though, either. Just last week, the three Mediterranean allies conducted a joint naval exercise, and all these moves possibly pointing to the increasing view of Turkey as a rival in the region. Now, in other news, ironic statements coming from Tehran over the weekend. Iranian investigators now blaming Israel for an alleged attack on an Iranian vessel in the Mediterranean. And this after rejecting responsibility for an attack on an Israeli vessel in the Gulf of Oman last month. But in any case, the Ayatollahs are saying that an Iranian cargo ship suffered damages from an explosive object and that no one on board was hurt. But they add that, quote, considering the geographical location and the way the ship was targeted, one of the strong possibilities is that this operation was carried out by the Zionist regime, end quote. And indeed, Israel has reportedly targeted at least 12 ships bound for Syria, most of them transporting Iranian oil or mines and other weapons. Israel, on the other hand, still maintaining silence on the matter, but Defense Minister Benny Gantz did hint at least at possible Israeli involvement, saying that Iran regularly traffics arms and resources to terrorist proxies in the region and that Israel regularly foils such arms supplies by air, sea, and land. All right, speaking of politics, we have some excellent news in the world of international diplomacy. The Czech Republic officially opening its embassy in Jerusalem over the weekend.
The opening of the embassy office of the Czech Republic in Israel represents additional proof of the depth and the scope of the friendship that we share with the Czech people and the Czech Republic and government, with the Jewish people and with the State of Israel.
It represents another milestone in our cooperation and gives evidence that we see the importance of this great city. And I am absolutely sure that it will further contribute to deepening and strengthening the ties between our peoples and become another proof of our true and devoted friendship, a friendship between the Czech Republic and the State of Israel.
Then later in a trilateral summit between Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and his Czech and Hungarian counterparts, Netanyahu likewise discussing future regional agreements on the coronavirus, green passport tourism, and more. But of course, the Palestinian Authority and the Arab League are already condemning the move, alleging that Prague's new mission in Jerusalem is a, quote, blatant attack on the Palestinian people and their rights and would ultimately harm the prospects of peace, end quote. And other Arab League leaders likewise are saying that the legal status of Jerusalem will be affected by such decisions. Still, and likely with Jerusalem's status partially in mind, the Czech leadership standing behind its decision made last December. Prime Minister Babis adding that they keep their promises. All right. In other political news, a historic move coming from Gaza, the Hamas terror group revealing the newest members of its recently elected Shura Council, and one member in particular may shock you.
For the first time in Hamas history, a woman, Jamila Shanti, is serving on the council, which is incredibly instrumental in determining Hamas policies. And this is why, typically, the members' identities are kept a secret.
Hamas's decision to expose the names, then, likely indicating the group's desire to appear as more of a government body and less as a terrorist group. And all this while Hamas planning to meet with rival party Fatah in Cairo to discuss the upcoming Palestinian elections,
which are set for May 22nd and July 31st, respectively. The parliamentary and presidential elections will be the first national votes that the Palestinians have seen in 15 years. But while these moves indicate potentially progressive steps forward, observers remain skeptical and question if elections will be fair, assuming they're held at all.
Repeated Palestinian attempts at holding elections have continually failed throughout the last few years.
Well, Israel continues to improve its anti-missile technology, the IDF successfully completing another round of advanced testing with its multi-tiered missile defense. The Invisible Shield combines components from the Iron Dome, Arrow, and David Sling defense systems. Specifically, the latest tests demonstrating efficiency and accuracy in simultaneously taking down multiple targets flying at different altitudes. The Invisible Shield, developed over the last 10 years with the United States support, is made up of the Arrow ballistic missile interceptors, the mid-altitude David Sling interceptor, and the short-range Iron Dome for salvos of smaller rockets and mortar shells. All right, moving along now. Flying pizza could soon be a reality. A new pilot program in Israel is looking to deploy a fleet of drones for deliveries of food and other products ordered online. The skies buzzing yesterday above the Israeli town of Hadera with 20 delivery drones for trial tests. Alyssa Hugel has more.
If you have ever grown impatient by waiting for the pizza delivery man to come to your door, fear no more. On Wednesday, Israeli company Airways conducting trial tests for delivery drones, which vary everything from pizza to prescription drugs.
It is a world first because first time, there is massive operations of drone over the urban skies, testing multiple operations simultaneously just to make sure that we can do it safely and efficiently.
While these small aircrafts appear to be the future of commercial delivery, many observers remaining skeptical. And Wednesday's test also sparking fears of mid-air collisions that could result in casualties on the ground. However, Airways CEO and co-founder Eyal Zor saying not to worry, stressing years of testing and reminding us that all the drones are equipped with parachutes to ensure safe landings.
We're going to take, 2 years from now, and we're going to see multiple drones flying over the city, like we're building the new skies, and we're going to get used to see drones doing safely deliveries over our heads.
And the Israel Innovation Authority adding that regulated commercial drone deliveries in Israel are unlikely before the year 2023. So for now, be prepared to hear some buzzing in the skies as companies continue to conduct trial tests. Alyssa Hugel, ILTV.
While Israel leads the world with its weapons technology and, of course, its COVID vaccine campaign, they may be falling a bit behind in terms of consistency over COVID restrictions. After months of disagreements between ministers over the airport, the Supreme Court has now ruled there can be no restrictions on the number of Israelis permitted to enter the country on a daily basis, which has been capped at 3,000 per day on recommendations from the Health Ministry. The High Court now ruling that the restrictions are unconstitutional and must end on Saturday, 3 days before the elections next Tuesday. The government also announcing this week that it will save Israel's national airline, El Al, in a project overseen by the finance ministry. The government will buy $210 million worth of flight tickets in advance from El Al and its low-fare subsidiary, Sundor, in a massive bailout. On Wednesday, the health ministry recorded 1,496 new COVID cases. There are 579 Israelis in serious condition, and it's the first time the number has dipped below 600 in months. More than 6,000 Israelis have died from COVID, but still the country is leading the world in its vaccine campaign. As of today, 5.1 million Israelis have been completely vaccinated. As for the Palestinians, this week a first shipment arriving as part of the global COVAX initiative by the WHO, including more than 60,000 doses. Until now, roughly 13,000 in the West Bank and Gaza had a first dose of the Russian Sputnik vaccine. And about 90,000 Palestinian laborers who have Israeli work permits have been vaccinated inside of Israel. And now that the majority of Israelis are vaccinated, it's time to consider getting back to our normal pre-COVID lives. And that includes education, of course. University institutions are once again opening their doors and campuses to students for in-person learning and hands-on internships. And that includes the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. Want to find out more? Take a look at this.
We're here at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem, one of the leading universities in the world. And we're here to take you on a special tour. Follow me. The Hebrew University of Jerusalem is an elite institution with a global reputation, located in one of the most beautiful and vibrant cities in the world. And its Rothberg International School offers students from around the world the once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to live, study, and intern in Jerusalem. The university offers both short and long-term tailored academic programs to ensure that every student has a unique and fulfilling experience. Mateas is currently studying in a year-long program at the Hebrew University.
The Hebrew University was very attractive because, first of all, for academic reasons, it's a very, very good university. And secondly, Jerusalem itself, I think, is a very unique place to be, not just for the region, but for the world in general, from religious, political, historical perspective, also cultural perspectives. So all the points that I actually study in my program. So it seemed to be the perfect fit for me.
In fact, the college offers numerous opportunities to not only take unique courses, it guides and assists students to secure leading internships and gain first-hand experience in their field. Jessica Summers is an American student interning at the Hebrew University.
I saw that the university had a summer science internship program, and so I applied to that. And with that, you can choose what kind of lab you want to work in. But since I have experience in a bumblebee lab, and there happens to be a great bumblebee lab here, I knew this was the place I wanted to go.
One of the highlights of the Rothberg International School is its STEMester program. This program grants students access to specialized courses in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics fields at the undergraduate and graduate levels, including opportunities in state-of-the-art research labs.
Coming here, I felt very welcomed by everybody in the lab, especially to be able to work as an undergrad with people who are so much more advanced in their studies.
And I mean, do you think this gave you a lot more experience, prepared you for, the future in terms of your career choice?
Being exposed to people who are working on their master's, working on their PhD, I kind of saw what that future would hold for me. So I definitely think it was an experience that I wouldn't have been able to get otherwise.
Professor Emeritus Hermona Sorek is a world-renowned researcher and just one of numerous leading lecturers in the STEMester program.
The experience of being a trainee in a real lab can change their life. I had a summer student like that who came back and said, now I know what I want to do. And she just graduated from medical school. So that's, of course, one example, but the number of letters I have to write says that it's not an exceptional one. It's the right thing to do. They come into an expanded family group that will help them and answer their question and assist them, and they can assist others in their work. They can get impressed what it means to be a researcher, what it means to be a PhD student, and it's a great city to stay. So.
The university aims to be the #1 choice for international students interested in studying and interning in Israel. Today, we saw just a small glimpse of the many opportunities here at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. So, what are you waiting for? Now, in our final topic tonight, antiquities thieves and smugglers long plaguing Israel's preservation efforts.
So Israeli antiquities authorities are adopting more preemptive measures, leading to an unbelievable discovery in the Judean desert. Hannah Rifkin with the details.
Another one's getting out. He's dusting himself off, he's getting dressed. For years, we chased after antiquities looters. We finally decided to preempt the thieves and try reaching the artifacts before they're removed from the ground and the caves.
Anti-looting efforts beginning in earnest back in 2017. Israel antiquities authorities surveying all the caves they could across the Judean desert. But the results unveiled today far exceeded expectations. Fragments of a biblical scroll from the Bar Kokhba period, a 6,000-year-old skeleton of a child, and likely the oldest complete basket in the world, dating back 10,500 years. These are just some of the thrilling discoveries recently unearthed in excavations.
We're excavating fragments that no human hand has touched in 2,000 years, and presto, they have landed on our desk. The fragments found are part of the biblical composition of the 12 prophets, books found in the Hebrew Bible.
So these are new pieces of the puzzle, and we can add them to our greater picture of the period and of the text. And even though these pieces are small, they did give us some new information that we did not know before.
Beyond finding priceless treasures and outpacing looters, though, the work itself involving great risk. IAA directors praising the desert team for their exceptional courage in rappelling down caves, digging and sifting through dirt, and for enduring thick and suffocating dust for years on end.
Survey in this scale was never conducted in the Judean desert. We surveyed more than 100 kilometers of the cliffs of the Judean desert, and you can see the results.
Now, despite Israel's landmark vaccine program, many in the international community are still levying completely biased criticisms. A parade of controversial members at the UN Human Rights Council, including from the PLO, Indonesia, Qatar, and Iran, taking to the plenum to accuse Israel of discrimination in its vaccine rollout against Israeli Arabs, minorities, and Palestinians. Some even accusing Israel of actively preventing vaccines from getting to the Palestinian Authority. But cutting through the slander, a strong voice for truth coming from none other than Israeli Arab rights activist and journalist Yosef Haddad. Haddad, who chairs the Biyachad Aravim Zelazeh, or Together Vouching for Each Other organization, has long been a public voice for constructive social change on behalf of Christians, Muslims, Bedouin, Druze, and other minorities in Israel. And in partnership with the Human Rights Watch NGO, Haddad providing a scathing response to the UNHRC, saying that, like himself, his family, friends, and hundreds of thousands of other Israeli Arabs have all already been vaccinated, adding that, quote, any attempt to claim that Israel's vaccine policy is racist is a blatant attempt to defame Israel and detract from the corruption of some of the countries on the UNHRC Council.
The state of Israel is running campaigns in Arabic to encourage us, Arab Israelis, to get vaccinated, and about our Palestinian neighbors. Despite that we are not obligated under the Oslo Accords, we help. Israel, not the Palestinian Authority, has vaccinated thousands of Palestinians. While the PA uses vaccine on their own officials and their friends, it was Israel that set up vaccine centers for Palestinians at Kalandia.
Now make sure to check out Yosef Haddad or Human Rights Watch on social media for the full statement.
Well, moving on now, you may have attended a bar or bat mitzvah, but I bet you've never attended a black mitzvah. Comedian Tiffany Haddish won the Grammy for the Best Comedy Album for her Netflix comedy special, which also celebrated her Jewish heritage. Beating out fellow Jewish comedian Jerry Seinfeld, who was nominated for 23 Hours to Kill, Haddish became only the 6th woman and 2nd black woman to win the award.
Tonight is a celebration. I have finally come into my full-grown womanhood. It's my mitzvah. I'm here to teach.
Haddish celebrated her black mitzvah in 2019, surrounded by an array of Jewish celebrity friends, including Billy Crystal, Chelsea Handler, and Sarah Silverman. Haddish became interested in her Jewish heritage after meeting her father, an Eritrean Jew, for the first time at age 27. She had previously worked as a performer at bar and bat mitzvahs, but hadn't known much about that part of her identity. Congratulations, Mazal Tov to you.
And that's it for ILTV's Weekly Review. I'm Aaron Porras. See you next week.